and welcome to the Progressive Queens, the show that talks about all things politics from a female perspective. I'm joined by my panelists, Mickey and Talisha. Wave hello, guys, and we're going to get right into it with the whole conflict with Israel. And hello, guests. Israel and Palestine. And it's just a complete mess, and it's so many layers. I don't know why Netanyahu thought, okay, let me just bomb these innocent people. I don't get it, so I'll let you guys talk, and then I'll just kind of jump.
Well, he has the approval of the U.S. He has the money we've given him. He has the weapons we've given him. He has our permission. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that when they first invaded Palestine in 1948, the entire developed world, including the U.S., declared it an illegal occupation. Right. Well, how can we support what we said was an illegal occupation, what is a genocide, with a leader who is under indictment for bribery and fraud and other crimes? How can we support them? That makes me angry.
Agreed. Birds of a feather, I guess, because America is nothing if not imperialistic, and we go dropping our bombs anywhere without care for non-combatants. So I'm sickened as well. I'm with Mickey. I think we all feel like this disgust in the pit of our stomachs. I don't know what it's going to take. I can tell you this, Tracy. Bibi's doing this because he is under indictment, like Mickey said. He's trying to change the narrative. And what's the best way to change the narrative? Kill a bunch of Palestinians. So it's disgusting. I just saw a video, I think I shared it with y'all, where they just blew up a media building that had some independent journalists, some more corporate journalists in it, but they don't want this on record. So it's gross. I don't know what's going to have to happen. I think the American people need to rise up and put some pressure on Joe Biden, because you're absolutely right. We sell our weapons to Israel, and for some reason we also send them money. I don't know why. I don't know what that agreement was. I don't like it, but I wouldn't give them not one more dime until they stop killing these people and oppressing these people.
You know what's interesting to me, though, and I don't know whether this is a good sign now. I personally have seen, at least for say my congressperson, I don't know about you guys as Congress. Oh, Talisha, you don't have one. I'm sorry, but
one, Eleanor Holmes.
But I've seen more people speak out against what Israel is doing. That gives me a sliver of hope, and it's more vocal. I never thought my congressperson was ever.
It's mostly the Justice Democrats. They have been,
and that's what I'm saying. My congressperson is not a Justice Democrat. Yeah.
Did you see the video? The propaganda, the video that Israel put out yesterday?
No, send it to us, please.
It's showing videos of buildings blowing up and basically saying, "Look what Hamas is doing to poor Israel."
Get out!
I just got chills. The rage is building up.
If I'm correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Hamas is on the list of terrorist groups, correct?
Yeah, but it's a long
I'm just saying, are they on the list?
Technically.
Yeah.
Okay, technically. So this group is defending the Palestinians or Palestinians. Okay, got it. I just wanted to make sure I was getting my facts right. Now, whether we could argue all day whether they truly are terrorists or not, right. I just wanted to make sure I was getting it right, that they're on the list. And I'll tell you who had a very poor response was Andrew Yang. I'm like, boy, you don't. I knew he wasn't progressive. I kept saying, guys, he's not progressive. He's not progressive. He's not progressive. This proved it. This totally proved what I was saying. I'm like, what? His statement was so, just to say it was beyond ignorant is just, that's just me putting it lightly.
But that's status quo for you. That is literally how they all feel. Andrew Yang was just dumb enough to say it at the wrong time, but let them not have been dropping bombs right now, airstrikes, and this was 6 months ago, and if he said something like that, he would have got applause and probably would have shot number one to the top of the mayoral list. Well, he already is, but higher, right? This is the American way, because Zionists feel that Jews have to take over there, and so that God will come back and smite them. So it's But that is the front they use to drag religious people to say what they're doing is the right thing. What it really is we're an imperialist nation. We want to keep Israel on our side because it is a strategic, gives us a strategic advantage to our perceived enemies, and we're trying to take and take and take and take. So America turns a blind eye to their atrocities because we benefit. It's disgusting, and I'm tired of this mess in our name.
Yeah, and I grew up in that kind of culture. You don't criticize Israel. You don't criticize Israel. My criticism is not against the Israeli people. I don't have any problem or Jewish people. My problem is with Netanyahu and his so-called government just bombing to take focus off of his own corruptness. That's where my problem
He doesn't have a government. He hasn't formed a government yet.
Exactly.
He doesn't have a government. But he's still bombing to take focus off of the fact that he doesn't have a government.
And it's in his trial. Isn't his trial supposed to start soon?
Yeah, they keep pushing it off.
And I don't understand I understand it, and here's where I'm going to probably get some flack back from you guys. I understand it from a religious perspective, and here's why I understand it. To a lot of evangelical Christians, not the real ones, the evangelical ones that identify with Trump. Mm-hmm. For some reason, that group of people thinks Israel can't do anything wrong. They can everything that they do is right. Of course, none of these people have actually read a Bible, but I'll just kind of skip over that point later. But they have this whole thing that is if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed.
Well, that's because of the what's the word? I can't remember it now, but if all the Jewish people eventually get killed, all the evangelical Christians will rise to heaven.
Yeah, and that's called replacement theology. That's the other thing I was going to get into.
No, there was another word, but I can't remember what it is.
You're not talking about the Zionists.
No.
No, this is a whole theology. Well, it's a whole theology. You hear people like, I don't know if you guys know who John Hagee is.
I heard the name.
He's one of those big Trump supporters. Always, well, I will not.
You're talking about the rapture?
Thank you. Yes.
There you go.
I was like, this had to be the end of the world because that's what it is. That's the big idea that Jews will be smited and then God will come back and take all his Christians and we'll live in the land of milk and honey. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and that's where you get. So I grew up in that culture. You don't criticize Israel. My question has always been, well, what's wrong with me praying for all the countries of the world? Why not pray for the people? Well, they're really one country. Okay, I know way back in the day, they used to be one country, but they're not anymore.
Right.
Jerusalem isn't the capital of Israel. It's Tel Aviv. It's like they're using, and we say this all the time, these politicians, especially on the right, are using people's religious indications to just support a country that literally is bombing innocent people for no reason. I don't.
And what makes me so angry is the number that is saying Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel is firing these giant rockets. All that Hamas has are these little missiles.
Was Israel attacked first? I thought they were attacking Palestine first.
So Israel was attacking Palestine.
Yeah, so where are they getting the fact of Israel is defending itself if they're the first one?
And Israel has the Iron Dome, which we helped create and pay for.
Thank you, Barack Obama.
Destroys most of the missiles that the Hamas is sending anyway. What does Palestine have for protection? Nothing.
The babies, I guess, because I don't even know how many children have been murdered at this point. It's so disgusting. It makes your heart bleed. I can't understand.
I'm glad some local, like I said, I'm glad some local, like the pushback is at least more vocalized. I don't know what legislatively they're going to do, but it needs to, the whole framing. I mean, I remember when Bernie Sanders said something against Israel. He's anti-Semite.
They called him a self-hating Jew.
Yep.
No, mine was, I never heard the self-hating Jew. I just heard he's an anti-Semite. I'm like, but he's Jewish. That's like
well, I don't know. We have Black people that have anti-Blackness, so I can see Jewish people having anti-Jewish behavior. However, we all know that was crap.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, stop. And that's a whole nother discussion of the media framing of this. I'm surprised that some of the media has framed it in the
it's
way.
gotten better, but did you see that clip where I think it was like CNN overseas was interviewing this one guy who was about to be evicted, and she basically called it, combat even, and he was like, no, I'm gonna need you to put it in this proper framing. They're throwing me out of my home. It's not an eviction, and this is my home, and they're throwing us out, and they're destroying our property. He set her straight, and she literally let him take the narrative, but it took a few days before they were trying to make it same, and it's not on any level.
That's what also surprises me. I'm like, okay, well, maybe the media is kind of like now starting to present a little bit. I know, a very, very tiny bit, but it's way better than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, but you have to listen for the caveats, Tracy, because they frame it, like you said, in such a way that even if they concede the point that Yahoo's right-wing government is out of control, they still try to make it seem like there's this almighty Hamas that they're battling. And that's not the case. Exactly like Mickey said, it's basically sticks and stones against a giant.
Yeah. Against a giant that has a huge shield.
Yes.
What natural... Like, I don't get why the bombing. I'm like, what does Palestine have?
They're fighting over the land. The Palestinians were there, Jews came, and they've been battling over territory since. So now they have them, basically cornered to this one little section that gets air.
They agreed to the country splitting like a long time ago, right?
They come together, they break up. They come together, they break up.
I mean, unless I'm getting my history wrong, I'm like, well, didn't they agree to split those two countries like a long time ago?
And I was going to ask you guys about that, because I remember Arafat, right? And Arafat really gave whomever was in charge of Israel at the time a run for the money. So it was a two-state solution. But when Arafat died, what happened? Does anybody know? Because now it just seems like there's nobody representing the Palestinians.
Yeah, that's what I was like, wait a minute now. I know my memory sometimes is scattery, but I'm like, I know there was agreement to split that country into two.
What you got, Mickey?
I'm sorry, what?
What you got? After Arafat, do you know what happened? Why
Israel got hungry. Israel got hungry. And they took a tiny bit of Palestine. And then they took a little more. And then they set up blockades so Palestine couldn't get delivery of food and supplies. And then they took a little more. And then they started shooting Palestinians who came too close to the border that they just made and moved again and again. They just kept escalating and escalating over the years. They want it all. You know what they're doing? They're doing to the Palestinians exactly what the Nazis did to them.
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. I was like, well, wait a minute. And the fact that they did this during Ramadan, I'm like, okay, just look,
it's disrespectful.
I don't practice Islam at all, but at least let them practice their religion.
Well, that's what started this latest bull. Ramadan was starting, so they blocked what was Al-Aq Mosque, one of their most holy, most sacred mosques, to prevent them from worshiping.
That doesn't make sense.
Think about what purpose is there in that except to agitate?
But again, you speak against Israel in certain circles, you might as well be Beelzebub. I'm like, you know what? I'm not listening to it anymore. You're not.
But that's the framing they use, because it's like, we all know we don't hate Jews. We love everybody equally. If you're a butthead, you get treated like a butthead. You're a good person, you get treated that way. It's literally the right-wing government of Israel that we have a problem with, and they try to blur the narrative so nobody stands up against it.
My point, I'm sorry to cut you off, but my whole contention is the way that the Biden administration is acting. I don't advocate violence, but somebody needs to be yelling in his ear, hey, nitwit, call this out and say it's wrong. Stop approving all of these billions of, if we're going to cut foreign aid, like we always say we should, and concentrate at what's at home, As far as I know, they're a country, so guess who gets cut?
Exactly. And then on top of that, a reporter even had to drag the State Department guy for the filth. I don't know his name, Zink or something like that. Basically, the reporter's like, why are y'all not doing anything? Why are you just letting Israel do this to Palestine? He was like, oh, well, we just got initial reports on the ground, so we're not quite sure. Turn on the TV. You'll be real sure real quick.
Exactly.
Oh, it's sickening. It's
Do you
sickening.
remember
Ireland has spoke out. Canada has spoke out. Everybody, not Russia. We don't know what Vlad's doing, but everybody spoke out except for our country. We look like idiots.
We've always looked like, we've been looking like idiots since, well, I would even
Reagan.
say before Reagan. I mean, Reagan was the catapult.
No, because Carter, we had Carter. He was great, as far as I'm told.
Well, you know what? Carter's one of my favorites. And the only reason he's one of my favorites is because he had one promise and he kept it. It was not his fault that Ronald Reagan decided to exchange people for bombs. That was not his doing. So I feel like he did wrong.
He wasn't as great. He wasn't as good on foreign affairs.
Yeah,
but he was great. He was great on domestic affairs.
Yep, he was.
I love Carter.
Yep, I get. As from what I can remember, he's like one of my top two. I mean, I think I have two presidents to me that were not trash. All the rest of them, garbage.
And who was prior to Carter? I think it was Ford, right?
Ford, and then
he inherited Ford's jacked up economy, and everybody blamed him. And Reagan was able to come in and be like, "You see what you let the peanut farmers do." And so,
look at what happened with the exchange of with the terrorists.
The Iran-Contra affair.
Yeah, Carter had been negotiating with them to release all the hostages. 10 seconds after Reagan was inaugurated, they released them. Who gets all the credit? Reagan. Did they really think that in those 3 minutes since the inauguration, Reagan arranged it? I mean, come on.
Yes, because since the beginning of the time, Republicans have had better messaging on their worst day than Democrats on their best day.
Well, that's the whole problem with the Democratic Party. Like I said, this administration, I keep saying, like, as a gag, I'm going to apply for a job with the White House because they need somebody just yelled at them, hey, stupid. Looky here. This is the way it is. I don't know where y'all live in, what kind of world you think is out there. But y'all need to wake up to this. Stop giving money to countries that bomb innocent people.
Now, have you guys heard of any organization that's like raising aid for them that we can link in the description or anything like that? Or
I don't know. I'm going to do some research on that because I think it's very well needed. And I think it's time for some of these Christian organizations to step up to the ladder and say, hey, what you're doing is wrong.
I bet you Reverend Barber will. I can't speak for any other one of these reverends out in the public, but I bet you Reverend Barber would.
I'm pretty sure of it, but it's gonna have to be more than him.
Right.
I did want to move on to our next subject, and it's kind of a left field, but this one is
First you get our blood pressure sky high, and then you're going to change the subject.
It's my job to keep.
Mickey, I have more.
I want to talk about some of these governors cutting unemployment benefits to people. I was and I know Indiana's next. I am so angry.
Did you see what Biden said?
Yes. He made people sick.
He said.
Go ahead, Mickey.
He echoed them. He said, if you're offered a job, you have to take it or you will lose unemployment. In other words, if you're offered a job for $7.25 an hour and it's not enough to pay your rent and feed your kids, tough.
How do we get this recall going? How do we recall Biden?
I mean, it's ridiculous. I keep saying the people that voted for Biden who supported him, not the ones that just voted for him because he was not Trump, but the ones that support him. Tell me how he's different from Trump, because I literally don't. I'm like, okay, one's named Joseph and the other's named Donald. I don't know the difference.
It's the nicey nice.
And he's not even nice. Didn't he threaten to fight his support? Didn't he fight people? Didn't he threaten to fight people?
Since he's been in office. since in office, he's been that, let's reach across the aisle, let's bring America. All the flowery platitudes, that's enough to keep them asleep at night. They want to go back to bed. They want to go to their brunches. They don't want to know what's going on every day. They don't want a president is going to tweet. So the bar is so low
that I should
he'd have to go underground to cover it.
He's throwing crumbs to the people, and the people are starving. So a lot of people are grateful for those crumbs. Meanwhile, all the main policies, the main issues that both Democratic and Republican voters want, he's saying you're not getting it.
Right. And that's what, I mean, his response was like what made me the maddest. I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, the easiest solution is for some of these jobs to pay a living wage. That would probably solve the whole problem. Who wants to work at McBurger King for barely, maybe if you get lucky, $11 an hour, maybe if you get lucky. And then the whole thing of the public saying, you know, businesses saying, you know, if you don't like this job, quit and find another one that's more suited to your liking. Well, now people are taking the advice.
Right.
So now guess what? It's like that's the easiest. The fact that he didn't even call for employees to raise their wages. I'm like, are you, again, I'm so ready to apply for a fake job in the White House and be like, look, idiot, this is the way it is. I don't know what your problem is, but we're struggling in these streets.
It's ridiculous. Vaccine is out. So now, okay, everything's cured, go back. No, one, I have for the last year and some change got my child to a certain position and I've worked either this schedule or worked no schedule and was barely surviving. Or now you want me to go back to a full-time job but my kid's still not in school and you want me to trust that my kid's going to be okay without me? You know, things have changed and the government has fallen down on the job. They have done nothing to prepare for this moment. You want folks to go back to work? Great. You make sure they have enough income to pay for childcare. You want folks to get off of the government dole? Great. You make sure they get raises so they can pay their bills. Because of the education system in this country, how it is ridiculous and gotten so out of control, they have no choice but to work at a McDonald's or a Burger King or what have you that pays nowhere near where it should. And then they have the nerve to look at folks sideways when they can't afford their bills and ask them, what's wrong with you? Why you can't?
How many people are months and months behind on their rent, on their car payment, on their credit card payment? They might have been getting by and paying their bills and been good for decades. All of a sudden, they're tens of thousands in debt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's no debt relief. That's making it harder. That's making credit scores lower, harder for people to buy houses. Let's not even discuss the current housing market where you get condo. I know Indianapolis is going to become a city of condos that no one can actually afford. But
it's that way all across the United States.
Yeah, and it's just like, at least what he could have said was, okay, you're going to cut this aid, we're going to do another round of stimulus.
Something.
That would have been at least a reasonable answer, not the perfect answer, but it'd have been something to say, oh, they should take the job. No, why don't you work for $7.25 an hour, and then let's just see how you come across. Let's see how long you play.
They should stimulate or send the stimulus monthly, at least a year out. It took a year to get in this damn hole. It didn't take 3 months to get out. So you need to make sure your people are covered for at least another year so they can recover. Now, if we're here next year and y'all been giving out at least $1,400 checks a month for the next year, and then there's folks that's just like, fuck it, I didn't do it, then okay, I can see ripping the rug out. I don't agree, but I can see it, right? You can't 2, 3, 4 months past a pandemic where it literally the vaccine literally just got spun up back in January and say, all right, what's wrong with y'all? That's not fair. Where does that get done at?
Well, you know, I mean, it was, and this is where I fault some of the progressive Democrats who will, one, they don't seem to be working for that monthly income, at least from what I can tell. And they've just let that whole argument just go. My argument was always been, we should be getting monthly checks irregardless of whether there's a pandemic or not.
Right. I realize there have been a number of cities before the pandemic, a number of cities who gave their citizens a UBI, Might have only been $500 a month or $1,000 a month, but they just did it because every one of those cities found success. The people were willing to and happy to work. The economy boomed in their neighborhoods. It's been proven to work over and over and over.
And then and then the fact that they pivoted or stop asking for it because the wage is going to go up to $15 an hour, which that didn't happen. So now you look like you have egg
no
on
teeth. They got no teeth.
Yeah, and I'm like, come on, we got to. I hate to say primary people because that I sometimes don't think that's the answer. I think it's up to the people in those districts because those people are not my congressperson. My congressperson is Andre Carson. That's who I should be saying, hey, we need a living wage.
Yeah. But have you seen, it must be a month or two ago, I posted a news article on local elections, how they're putting QAnon in local elections and they're winning.
Yeah.
I know you probably got a whole bunch out in Indiana, huh, Tracy?
This is all over the country. They're advertising as if they're advertising as if they're Q. The people know it and they're electing them to local offices. That's where you start, is at the bottom, and then keep building up.
I mean, that's the progressive motto too. So
yeah, but
because now they're just, I mean, I don't want to criticize groups, but there are certain groups who I won't name that are just supporting the national candidates where my argument has been, okay, what about city council? What about mayors? What about governors? Why don't we do something at that level?
I'll name them Justice Democrats who suck.
Well, see, I was trying to be polite. I was really trying to be polite.
Listen, I broke up with them after they endorsed Narratan and I was done. So Justice Democrats doesn't have a home here anymore.
Well, I haven't broken up with them. I still have hope that they might wake up. I have hope that if we get enough more of them in, that they'll feel they're strong enough to stand up. I mean, if you've got, 10 or 11 of them, and they don't feel they, excuse me?
Is it that many? I don't think it's that many.
Yeah, it's 11. Yeah. Because if you've got Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, Ayanna Pressley, AOC, the one lady in Washington whose name I can never pronounce.
In Washington, the Schwartz?
No.
You talking about Ilhan
Omar? What's her name?
Pramila Jayapal.
I don't think she's a Justice Democrat, though. She's a progressive.
Yeah, I'm saying progressive. I'm not talking about Justice Democrats. I moved on from them. I'm trying to count the 11.
Ro Khanna.
Still not I don't think, is he a Justice Democrat?
He was
no,
the first
I'm not counting Justice Democrats. I'm counting who has identified themselves as.
Ro Khanna was the first Justice Democrat.
Was he? Okay, I'll go with that. I trust you.
Then you got Jesus Garcia, which a lot of people forget about Jesus Garcia.
Don't know him. I think y'all tell me like every week and I forget.
I keep telling y'all, look up Jesus Garcia.
He ain't making enough noise, so.
None of them are. Except for recently with the Israeli bombing. Yes, they are now on this. But how can they
go so far, right?
Yeah, but how can they say they don't have a voice when even if there's only 6 or 7 of them, when Joe Manchin alone has no problem having a voice?
One person can cripple the whole Senate. It's disgusting.
But that's because my whole argument is Joe Biden is Joe Manchin.
Yes.
And he gets away with what he gets away with because basically he's saying what Biden wants to say, but
exactly.
Say it, like publicly. I personally think they're in coordination. That's me. I'm not one of those.
We agree.
No doubt in my mind.
Right. And it's a win-win because for whatever reason that is beyond my rationale, West Virginia is a red state, so he looks like he's playing tough with the liberals. And then at the same time, we really know we elected a president that is a Republican light, probably give half those conservatives a run for their money with his beliefs. So it's the win-win. He's doing Joe's bidding, but still seeming like he's his own man fighting for West Virginia. Someone please break down to me why those poor as in no money, sick as in every disease and whatever known to man, and hooked on drugs and uneducated, because I think they're like number 2 for the country as worse, or if you want to say the other way around, 49, whatever, however you figure it out. whatever the bad one is.
Yeah, I think
why are they like this?
Joe Manchin, the 2 days after Mitch McConnell repeated what he said over 12 years ago, he said, I am 100% focused on stopping Democratic legislation. 100%. 2 days later, Manchin was saying unity, bipartisanship. Did he not hear Mitch? Did he not hear Mitch?
But Mickey,
12 years ago when he said it?
He did.
He said it the night Obama was elected.
Right.
But he said it, and he's been doing it for over 12 years, and he keeps repeating it.
Right.
Tell me how Biden and Manchin can say unity, bipartisanship, when Mitch stands up and says to them, I'm not going to unify with you. I'm going to block you.
You would think if somebody said, okay, we played this game last week if I were president, but I'm going to go for it again. If I'm president and I got some nitwit in my own party that says, I'm going to do this. Okay, first of all, he just got elected, so I can't vote him out because he's there for another 6 years.
I don't think so. You talking about Manchin?
Yes, Manchin just got reelected.
He got reelected back in 2016. What's her name? Something Steam something. Primary.
I'm pretty sure that Joe Manchin's let me look this up. I'm pretty sure Joe Manchin really.
Paula Jean Swear Engine. She primaried him back in either 16 or 17.
She primaried him, but what did she get any support?
18. He was elected in 18.
Yep, okay. That's what I thought. So if he gets,
we got 3 more years.
That he's got 3 more years.
Really 2, because don't you start running that year prior? So he's got about 2 more years.
So here's what I would do if I were president and he's acting like a plum near fool. Okay, I'm gonna start looking for candidates that I want on my side to either primary him or recall him. Those are my only 2 options. Either I'm gonna primary somebody against you, or you're going to get recalled. And I'm going to put up billboards in your area. And I'm going to send the vice president to your radio talk shows. And I'm going to take Air Force One, fly to West Virginia and be like, hey, this nitwit is stopping y'all money.
And send Bernie. Bernie was there. They love him. He could go down there and go from county to county, drag Joe Manchin for the filth. I guarantee you'd be a whole different Joe that following Monday.
Yeah.
Well, didn't he do that? He did that in Louisiana, I think it was.
Was it Louisville?
Louisville. I know he went to Louisville with Charles Booker.
Okay.
It just made me smile hearing that name.
I know. I'm like, stop thinking about running and run.
Right. Supposedly the exploratory committee, I guess this is all about how much money he can raise. So whatever that grassroots fundraising looks like at the end of whatever fiscal time period, that'll decide whether he's going to run or not. But I don't see him not beating Rand Paul. Like, Mitch McConnell was terrible, but he was good for money. There's 0 value that Rand Paul brings to the Senate.
You know what? As much as I agree with you, the Democrats are going to run that Amy chick again. Watch. I
doubt they'll run her. I don't think that she's proven a loser twice. They won't run her, but they will try to, suffocate him like they do any progressive. That's our job to make sure that never happens again.
I bet I got money on this one. I'm thinking she's
not running her. She's a loser. They're not going to run her a third time.
They may not support her, but she's running because when she went to I'm a Trump Democrat, I'm like, huh? What? Huh? Say that again, lady.
Right.
What? I don't even know what that means. It's either you support him or you don't support him. But like I said, Joe Manchin and Joe Biden are essentially the same person. Yeah. And Manchin gets away with this because what he's saying is truly how Biden feels. Because if he really wants to, he could make life hot for Joe Biden. Just run around Joe Abbott like, hey, call him at this number and tell him to give y'all money. Boom.
And he doesn't even have to get mean or nasty. He could take the other route. Hey, Joe, you need new bridges in this city? You need that? I will give you some pork if you vote with us. How about that?
You want a new clinic in West Virginia? Okay, vote this way and we'll do it. But you won't do that because he and the rest of the Democrats, I keep saying this, they don't want to help people. They don't. Exactly. Because if they did, and you have that, if you have a bully pulpit, you have the majority, and then the other side says they don't want to work with you, oh well, ram through everything you want. Just take it, ram it, and go. Like, oh well, they didn't want to work with us.
But then you got Blue MAGA that is quick to defend all of the shenanigans. They're defending Liz Cheney. So I know for a fact Joe on water. And they'll say, first for Biden, he just got there. Give him time. Really? What has he done? And then for Joe Manchin, you got to give him a break. He's in a red state. No. These people are corporate. They're about corporate money back into their pockets, and they don't care about the working man. They don't care about the little guy. They don't care about that starving kid because they don't fit the demographic that they're coming from.
Exactly. You said that exactly. And you just got on my next subject of Liz Cheney being replaced and somehow the media shaping this like she's some kind of hero. I'm like, wait a minute. Unless I missed something, I'm just like, huh? Did she vote with Trump like 93% of the time or something?
Yeah.
My response to everyone who says that is, for 4 years, she backed every one of Trump's lies, every one of his crimes, every one of his atrocities. Now that he's out of office, and she's not the only one, now that he's out of office, suddenly she grew a conscience. And we're going to forget the last 4 years that she was 93% behind him. Right. It doesn't work that way. I'm sorry.
We're all for warmongering, but we draw the line at mean tweets. Get out of my face. I'd rather you be mean to me than kill a million people overseas.
And I know this was her father, Darth Vader.
She's in total agreement. She's in total agreement. She actually was fighting the withdrawal of troops. She's straight from Dick Cheney's tree. The apple fell right down into the rot.
Yeah,
and you see what they're replacing her with?
Oh, that lady is.
She's my rep.
But
she is not my rep, and she has never been to this district. Never. She has never campaigned here. She's been on the local news where repeatedly they would catch her in a lie. The reporter would correct her, and she would double down on it and lie to cover it. She does not care about her district at all. She was semi against Trump for a lot of years. And all of a sudden she said, wait a minute, I can rise in the ranks if I crawl up his butt. All of a sudden she's a big Trump supporter.
Oh yeah.
Hypocritical much?
Much. I'm like, what? And to hear her talk, we're gonna work with President Trump. I'm like, girl, he's not president.
She said that recently? She said that recently? Stefanik said this?
He literally called him President Trump. I'm like, girl, no.
How's she working with him? She gonna pull a double on the weekend in Mar-a-Lago? How's she working with him?
Girl, ask her because I just
she got me when she was during the impeachment trials when I totally lost it. I couldn't stand her before, but she was up there lying, telling actual lies on the House floor. Over and over and over, and her acting was terrible. You could tell she was acting, and my blood was boiling. People here love her,
and you wonder why. Why do people love these QAnon? I'm going to call her QAnon because she basically bought into it.
Party now.
What the bleep is wrong with the Republican Party? Like, y'all, who? I mean, they never have been for the people, which I've always known. But neither had the Democrats. So I can at least be like, well, they're the same bunch. But I'm like, what's wrong with you all? Do you hear what they're saying?
It's the racism for them.
Well, that's a portion I never even thought about. Right.
We come for the tax cuts. We stay for the racism. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Yep, that is a good point. And I'm like, girl, do you recognize that you're a token female? The Republican Party literally cares nothing about women's rights.
Right.
Literally, not that the Democrats are so much better, but they're a little
bit. Look at what they did to Liz Cheney. I mean, she was straight Republican, backed them every step of the way for decades. Yep. All of a sudden, kick her out. The ones who cry the most about cancel culture canceled her real quick.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you know what bothers me though is the media selling her as this hero, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Do they not know what her record is? Or well, I know what they're doing. They're choosing to ignore it.
Blue MAGA. But I imagine we probably would have been, the right wing would have been the same way if during the Trump years, a liberal came out and was like backing Trump, right? Right wing media would have gelled to them like nobody's business. They kind of do it with Glenn Greenwald, but to me, I think he's more of a consummate, what is it when somebody always wants to argue a point? What's that called?
Argumentative?
Well, no, it's like you basically
contrarian.
I think he's just naturally a contrarian, and his contrarian ways sometimes ends up running very right wing. But they gel to him. They have him on Fox all the time. So in that vein, the media is just dumb and goes with whatever they want, because there's no reason why Nicole Wallace should have a job. There's no reason why, what's that dumb bunny that's always giving advice? McCaskill. She should never have a job. All these, and then and all these people.
Michael Steele?
Who now? Who?
Michael Steele?
Absolutely. So all these people that did all this dirt over the years now are beaking shining lights for us to look on because they hate Trump. It makes me sick.
Yeah, and look at what happened with the Lincoln Project and all the mess they're in. They started as a group of anti-Trumpers, and now they have. I'm not even going to talk about all the allegations they have going against them. I'm like,
I have to admit, though, I still love their ads.
Oh, the ads are great.
Well, the ads are funny. I mean, but I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you got to sweep around your own front porch.
Exactly.
Before you go sweeping around.
Well, I think I read somewhere like 70% of the donations went in their pockets.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Mickey, I don't know, you probably saw, because they used to air this all the time, footage on TYT, that old picture of Rick Wilson on the fishing boat with the stars and bars on his cooler. But now he's like liberal best friend. Like, yo, he was just a whole racist back during the Bush era. Now he's cool because he don't like Trump. It's sickening.
Well, look at the way they treat George W. Bush. Oh, people were like saying this guy's a hero. I'm like, are you serious? The guy that lied about weapons of mass destruction.
They're whitewashing his history, just like the whitewashing January 6th.
Absolutely.
Which is worse, because I'm like, George Bush is the one that caused this whole thing when he lied about weapons of mass destruction, then the Patriot Act. Then I'm like, oh gosh. I'm like, how many things can I sit here and name? I'm like,
destroyed our economy. Don't forget that.
Exactly. I'm like, huh?
Wait a minute. Still trying to recover.
I'm like, we are still in Afghanistan because of a lie he told. You're selling him as a hero. Okay. I guess.
Well, if each election we get a president that's worse than the last, by the time you go back 3 or 4, they look like angels.
I feel like it's going to skip Trump always.
Yeah. When we write the history books, we should just be like, well, Barack Obama was president, and then Joe Biden came in.
Right. This is going to be a white space.
But it happened. I don't know. What the guy said? We were in this time machine, right? And we were just waiting. We just sat there and we just waited.
Purgatory. 4 years of purgatory.
Yeah. So it's like, come on.
But who said it? I can't remember which one of you. It might have been, I don't know, which one of y'all. Y'all said there's really no difference between Trump and Biden. You are so correct. Okay. You're so correct. I mean, it's like some things they just Trump had put into into action, and all along the campaign trail, Joe was saying, I'm gonna get rid of that, I'm gonna get rid of this. They're secretly keeping it. Or there was things that were supposed to be in place, they're secretly getting rid of them. Anything that benefits, and they're not saying nothing. And then the media is just so in awe of just having press briefings that they what's the little redhead gal's name? Saki. They let her get away with lying every day. And then she's just so wonderful and so approachable, but she's lying to your face. So what's the difference between no press briefing or a lie?
She evades, which gets on my nerves. She evades in her questions. And at least when Barbie was in there, she was just straight out, because I forget what her name is, but she looks like a Barbie doll to me. So that's what I'm going to call her. No offense to feminists out there, but I can't think of her name. At least when she talked, you knew, okay, she don't got no sense. She's just saying what they told her. This one, she evades the whole question totally. Or if someone asks her a question, she'll get that smart alecky tone. I'm like, well, that was actually a good question. That was actually a halfway decent question.
And you're right. You're right that this one is worse because at least the last one was brainless, and we knew what was coming.
Exactly.
This one is smart. She's smart, so she knows how to play them.
And she's fresh off the hills of spinning stuff for the last 4 years on CNN. So she's well versed in media, and they're her friends. So they're not gonna hit her with the hardest questions, unless it's maybe Fox or what's the psychotic network?
There were some
OAN.
OAN.
You've seen some of her latest conferences where some of she has been hit with some hard questions. She has literally been hit with some questions. I thought, oh, that's a good one. I don't know who they came, whether they were Fox or OAN or whoever, but I thought, okay, that's a good question. And she totally, she goes all the way to the left with the answer. I think one time I watched her, somebody had asked, why did President Biden go from the $2,000 to $1,400? And she gave some answer. I'm like, literally, what did she just say? What did she just say?
I'll never forget that time they asked her if Janet Yellen had a conflict of interest because she had stocks in whatever the subsidiary of GameStop was. And then this heifer started saying, well, she's the first woman appointed to this position. And Biden has more women and more diversity in his cabinet than any other president. Like, what the does that have to do with the question?
Wait, hon, you did not answer the question.
But that's
we've gone over his diversity before. Like I said, he said, okay, I want 6 Black people. I want 5 women. I want 2 Native Americans. I want 1 Hispanic. No diversity in ideology.
Of course.
Only in color, in gender, in religion. That's where his diversity is.
Exactly. And then you got these liberals that are lulled back to sleep. Oh, he's got a Black vice president. I'm checking out. Oh, it's not Trump. I'm checking out. Yet the policies didn't change.
And then they're going to look up funny when I still think if Trump's not in prison, he's going to run. If he wins, I'm going to be like, see, this is what you get. Right. This is just what you get.
Who just gave that 70% stat? I'm sorry, y'all, because I can't remember who told me what, but somebody had just said 70% of the people were with it and they still did it against our will. And it's like, I can't remember what we were talking about something, but the stat came out, the 70% of the people were with it and they still ignored it and voted their own way or whatever they're doing. This is exactly why we're going to lose these next couple of elections. But the simple fact is the people are telling you what they want. The people, there's no, I wonder if it could go either way. No, you've got even Republicans, dyed in the wool Republicans, in the womb, whichever it was. Anyway, you've got them saying at 60, 70, and 80 and 90% for these policies, and they're still voting the other way. They're still ignoring us. I don't know what's going to happen because the Republicans at least lie well. So their people will probably still come out. This will definitely, dissatisfy voters on the Democratic side, and they're going to have zero support. We're going to lose the Senate. We're going to lose the House, and we will lose the presidency come 2024. It's a wrap for us unless they wake the heck up.
See, you keep
and
saying
they won't.
And I don't count myself in the Democratic Party because it left me a long time. I'm like, okay, do you keep doing these dumb policies? Keep on with the promising one thing and doing another. Keep ignoring a minimum $15 wage, even though I think it should be 30. But
you went up.
Yeah, I went up. I used to say 35, and now I was like, well.
Most economists say 24, 25 should be the minimum.
That's the one I know, but I'm all for more. Like I think y'all tell me these stories all the time. I need to start writing y'all's name down so I can say Mickey said on this day, but somebody said a CEO, like a millionaire, took a billionaire, probably took a cut to his pay, so all of his employees can.
Dan Price. So every employee can get paid $70,000 a year. 70,000, and not only were they able to start buying houses, have children, the economy boomed in their area.
Money stimulates the economy. Pay people money, they're going to shop. They don't hoard it like these rich folk.
Well, the Republican Party will always get into office because they campaign on 2 things: gun rights and restricting women's rights.
It's the culture war, stupid. Like what
exactly.
Carvel says.
They campaign on things that have nothing to do with nothing, but they'll keep getting elected, especially now that you have all these restrictive voter laws that are coming into play. I'm just like, you know what? Don't come for me. You know, I got into a little bit of an argument with someone on Facebook that said the reason that the Democrats lost the election was campaigning for defunding the police. And I'm like, no, you totally missed the issue. Yeah, I did. I'm like, you know what? Here are some seats. Have several of them. Because I'm so tired of just arguing with people. This whole thing about you just want something for free. No, I don't. Oh, you're another free wanting socialist. No, I'm not. I'm for taking tax dollars that we already pay and using it for my benefit. What's so socialist about that? That should be the normal thing that should be happening.
Oh, they believe in socialism. Socialism for the rich. Rugged individualism for the poor.
Yeah, and I love that word. You know, you have Mitch McConnell, my least favorite legislator of all time. Yeah, he's my least favorite one. There's some other ones that are competing, but he's my least favorite one. Coming out and saying when these corporations took their fake stance for voter rights, oh, well, they should stay out of politics. Well, that's great, Mitch. Are you going to stop taking money from corporations for your?
Oh no, he said it outright. He said that doesn't mean you should stop donating. He actually said, get your nose out of politics, but keep the money coming in. He said it publicly.
Yeah, and I'm like, huh? What? Huh? Yeah, I'm just like, whoo-wee. Sometimes my head hurts at the stupidity of the electorate. I'm like, I don't like to call people stupid, but the electorate needs to wake up and stop putting these nitwits in office because they're not.
Did you see the statement that Cruz put out there?
I know what he said. To him.
He said, paraphrasing, you corporations, stay out of it, basically. You have no business in this because if you do stick your nose in, we're going to stop doing favors for you.
What's the favor, Ted?
But the point is, he said, we're going to stop giving you tax breaks. We're going to stop doing this. The Republicans are standing on the public stage and saying, we're corrupt. This is what we do. How can people vote when they're publicly stating this stuff?
Because they'll turn right around and say, build that wall. It's the immigrants taking your job. Illegal aliens taking your job. And then that puts the beast to sleep, because now I can hate that Mexican as opposed to holding accountable the person that's got their hand in my back pocket shaking it loose.
Yep, understandable that. Well, guys, it is time for our break. The audience knows what that means. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and I will see you all here in a bit, and we'll come back for our lengthy discussion on the Green New Deal.
Maybe make some of that noise Tracy was making. Oh, whoops. Hi.
So
right there. Don't stop. That's the spot.
And we're back with the second half of the Progressive Queens, and we've had quite of a 5-minute break, which I won't go into. Maybe the post show we will, maybe. But we're here to talk about the Green New Deal.
Okay.
And they're picking on me today, audience. I just want you guys to know that. They're picking on the girl. And I didn't do anything to hurt anybody. I'm just out here.
Oh, stop it, Felicia. I can't control myself.
Maybe you can cut this out. But before you cut it out, Tracy, send it to us, please. Okay.
Yeah, maybe you should start over, Tracy.
Okay, everyone. We are back for the second half of the show. And we are talking about our topic of the day, the Green New Deal, what's stopping it from going. Mickey, I'm going to ask you to give us a brief history of the Green New Deal, what it proposes, so that our audience will know what it is that we're talking about.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, well, actually, the history is a couple decades old, or several decades old, which we choose to ignore. But basically, right now, it'll fixing the climate crisis, passing this will not only fix the climate crisis or help, it will boost the economy tremendously. It'll create millions of jobs. It will stop the poisoning of our children with the chemicals and the air. It's just such a basic rock bottom policy that should have been passed decades ago. I don't know what more to say. It's, right now, one of my biggest things with it is the housing crisis. There is not one person, not one state has a city that a person making minimum wage can rent an apartment. Not one. This whole country. Green New Deal would build new apartment buildings that are green, that would have gardens, that would have, and that would not only, low income housing, not only let people have decent housing, it will boost the economy in that the steel industry, every industry would benefit. It would give millions of jobs, you think, of people producing all the products that need to go into making buildings. It will give jobs to the people building those buildings, plumbers, carpenters, electricians. And if you do it with green spaces, you can provide food, good food for people. This needs to be done all over the world. And the fact that it won't even be considered in this country is disgusting.
Yep. And if you're the governor of Texas, you blame it for your oil crisis. But let's not stop there, because I won't go on a rant about how I think this is how is it? Yeah, I'm going to go there. How is it that people that you have legislators, you have groups that are against the Green New Deal? I'm like, what is your opposition for creating millions of jobs, reducing emissions that are harmful? You have a problem with it because it costs too much? Well, we're talking about planet Earth here. So, I mean, we can't live, I know I got a lot of flack last week because I said I would cut NASA, because I'm like, we can't get this planet right. So how are we going to go living on another one? This is the only planet that I know that we can live on, as far as I know.
It has nothing to do with the cost. In the long run, when you consider decades and decades, it would save us money. But it's mainly the fossil fuel industry. You talked about the governor of Texas. With their electricity problem, he took millions from fossil fuel industry. The fossil fuel industry does not want the Green New Deal. And just probably all of our legislators take money from them.
And you think, don't you have enough common sense to know there's only so much of that fuel left? It's like, it came from something that used to be alive, not alive anymore, and you're using the power. That's going to run out someday.
Well, why don't we, hemp used to be a major crop in this country. Hemp grows twice as fast as anything else. In a warm climate, they can grow 2 crops in 1 year. It costs far less to raise. It doesn't need any chemicals or pesticides to grow it. It can be used in 1,000 different ways. It can replace plastic. It can replace paper. It can replace material. They've built cars out of hemp. The only reason it was outlawed, mainly, there were a lot of them, but the biggest one was William Randolph Hearst. He not only owned all these newspapers, he owned thousands of acres of forest that they used to cut down to make pulp. Hemp was much stronger, more sturdy, and cost less to produce. That was cutting into Hearst's profits. So instead, we outlawed hemp, and even though hemp itself doesn't have THC in it, it's not the same as marijuana. We outlawed it and made it against the law. Instead, we use fossil fuels fuels and went crazy with plastics, that not only the production of it is killing this planet, but the end product is killing this planet.
Exactly. You look at, I was reading some study where they were talking about people that tactfully throw their, like if you live near like an ocean, people just throw their trash in there. Like it's just not, like, are you serious? Are you serious with this? This is polluting not only is it polluting the environment, but you're also endangering the sea life that's there. Like literally, I can't understand. And I know you guys are saying the fossil fuel industry, but they have to be thinking, okay, this is going to run out someday. It's not going to last forever. So why don't we develop, electric cars or cars powered by hemp or cars powered by whatever they want to use? They aren't thinking that way. It's like they're thinking of short-term gains, but we have these long-term effects that we have to deal with. I mean, you have more children. It seems to me there's more children now with asthma and breathing problems than I remember even when I was growing up. I don't even remember this many children having asthma.
Well, it's a little this, a little that, right? So with the politicians, they're just getting paid off. So they don't care because literally, what are most of our politicians? They're in their late age stages and they have grands, they have children. I don't know if they think Elon Musk will have enough money, he'll have them up on Mars breathing in a tube. Who knows what the mindset is? But there's a lot of like anecdotal, of course, but when I spoke to my other conservative brother-in-law who's married to my sister, I asked him about that and he was just kind of like, well, God's not going to let us destroy the earth. So that religion tells them that, well, God will come back before we can destroy it. So we don't even need that. And then, of course, they fall for the lies that the politicians tell them that they're getting rid of cows and we can't fly a plane anymore and this, that, and the other. So it's a vicious cycle.
I got news for him. How about we tell him we won't destroy the earth? We might do a lot of wrecking, but once we exterminate ourselves, the earth will recover more quickly than you can imagine. We can only hope that whatever evolves has a little bit more brains than we had.
Well, look at California. Remember when they shut down for COVID? All the smog was gone in 3 months. Yep. It was the cleanest air they ever had, but then they're back on the roads again. Levels went right back through the roof.
And I've heard evangelicals say that argument. And again, I'm like, what Bible is it that you're reading? Because the one that I read says to occupy. Mm-hmm. That means you take care of what you have and not do all of these piddly little stupid things that we're doing. We're literally killing ourselves with a lot of these companies to produce plastic. How many people recycle? Just the basic, just to get people to recycle. I know we do, but how many of our friends are recycling? Very few.
I saw a report that said 90% of the things that we're recycling, even though they tell us to, is useless. So
it's absolutely useless.
So it's not getting reused and repurposed. It's literally getting thrown in that landfill or that river. Like I know Japan's about to drop off a ton of trash to just throw in the ocean. And then you see these heartbreaking images of the turtles that somehow swim through the 6-pack, and then all of a sudden their shell is in the shape of the zeros from the 6. It's so disgusting. And it's like, how would you like if somebody came and they, threw stuff in your home and you had to swim through trash in your house to get out the front door? It's very disrespectful, and we don't appreciate this wildlife. We think it's plentiful. How many species have been extinct because of our actions? Look at what they're doing in the rainforest right now. Those trees keep us alive.
And instead of planting more, you want companies, produce paper. Well, my thing is, okay, you've never heard of digital, but like you've never heard of that. But I know some poorer countries don't have the access to digital technology. That's a whole different discussion. Mm-hmm. But I just always scratch my head because I'm like, this is going to run out. We are going to, even if we had like solar panels on top of our homes, think about how much money you could save on your light bill if you had a solar panel on top of your house. But then, of course, that's going to put the electric company out of business, and they're funded by the government. And so it's this circle, and it's like, what is it going to take to break that? And because until that breaks, we're not,
It's simple. The fossil fuel companies make billions every year, and we give them billions in subsidies. Why don't we give subsidies to the renewables, to the solar, to the wind, to the geothermal? Why don't we subsidize them and stop subsidizing the ones who are already making billions in profits?
It's hard to get
Think about it, because the ones who own the fossil fuel companies own our legislators.
Real hard to get a kickback from the renewable, especially if it's government run. And so they definitely want to keep it in the free market, which means AKA grease my palm. Hello, what is it? Citizens United.
Felicia, I can barely hear you.
We can barely hear you.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now repeat what you just said.
Tracy, we just said the same thing at the same time.
So it must be true.
This is scary.
We've been having some issues with our router. I was just saying that basically you can't get money out of not fossil fuels, but green initiatives, because 9 times out of 10 is going to be government funded. So there's nobody to kick back to you. And I said, so that's why these politicians are, breaking their necks to keep these destructive, resources in place, because that's where their bread and butter is. It's not from grassroots. Hello, Citizens United.
Yeah, because corporations are people.
And it's not, the fossil fuels running out won't happen for a long time. What will happen, though, is droughts, which is already happening, wildfires, which is already happening. The oceans are covering parts of the land now. That's already happening. There are places where people have had to leave because the water has gotten so high. Right. All of that is already happening. That's something they can see.
Right. And people won't even look at the change in the weather. When I was a kid, I knew there was a distinction. In April, it was going to be warmer. In December, it was going to be cooler. Now it's like, it could be snowing in May and 75 degrees in December and 22 degrees in July.
2 weeks ago, we had 2 days in a row of snow. Up until 2 days ago, we had barely hit 50.
Wow.
Yeah, we were in the 40s. We didn't have snow, but we were hitting that. The low was like 39. I'm like, isn't this May?
And the summers have gotten extreme. The summers have gotten disgusting. We used to play outside all summer long growing up. You think them kids are setting foot outside in 100 and 200 degree weather? I live in DC. We've never really had temperatures higher than maybe high 90s. Now it's in the low hundreds, borderline in mid, 10s. It's ridiculous.
I think that's
we had a storm in November, a snowstorm.
Jeez.
4 feet in one storm. Well, I'm sorry, 3.5 feet, and then the next day we got another 7 or 8 inches. That was too early. And it got so cold so fast, it never left. So the snow just kept piling up all winter. I mean, it was just, and then not only did it start way too early, it's still trying to hang on.
And people don't even think, like the common person doesn't even think this is making a difference.
Right.
We want to talk, you hear idiots like, the governor of Texas talk about how the Green New Deal, which isn't even a law yet,
right,
which has little chance of even passing, is somehow affecting your ability to provide heat, electricity, or I'm just like, I just don't know what it's going to take for the public, for the electorate to wake up and say, enough is enough. I'm tired. Goodbye.
We blame 10 to 20% green initiatives for the power grid failing when it's like 80% fossil fuel. So I don't get it. I don't know why that flew. Like, no one was like, but we only have 20%. How is 20% stopping the whole show?
You get it. He took over $1 million from fossil fuel companies. That's all it takes.
And if you're the fossil fuel companies, I said this last week, you're getting well worth your money. If you're only contributing a little $1 million, but you're getting these billions of dollars worth of taxpayer dollars, why am I stopping?
Right.
Why am I stopping? There's no reason for me to stop.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
And then, they can't see the millions of jobs this would create. Millions. Look at people building the wind turbines, people to maintain them, people shipping, driving trucks or trains that are carrying these carts.
Mm-hmm.
Same with solar. Same with geothermal. The jobs that would create is unbelievable.
And wasn't there pushback when the Biden administration was proposing that United States Postal Service's trucks be electric?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I was like, huh? That's like the most common. I'm like, okay, that's, I was like, okay, that's actually a good, solid idea. And I'm hearing all this pushback, and I'm like, okay, either I'm not smart or something, like my whole understanding is just way off, because I literally don't understand the argument. The argument literally makes no sense. Why would you want a planet that children 50 years from now are going to benefit from?
And think of the factories, the people that would put to work. Factories building the bodies, factories building the engines. I know nothing about engines, so I don't know what's involved, but people have to build the engines. People are making tires. Mm-hmm. How many factories would that put to work?
You could create millions of jobs by taking some. I know in Indianapolis, we had this problem of lots with cars just filled with old cars that nobody's driving. Recycling that could put 2,000 or 3,000 people to work, and recycling that into soda cans or new cars or what have you. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things I should have said last week was, if I was president, I'm like, recycling, and I know I'm going to get some flat back for this one, but I don't care. I would make recycling mandatory.
Right.
I'm tired of this. We have, like I said, tons filled of cars, just junk cars sitting there, and plastic bottles and all of this stuff that's just sitting there, and it's just emitting all of these emissions that are making people sick. If we don't do something, it's a done deal. It's a wrap.
Oh yeah. I want to say what was the timeline? Like the irreparable damage starts like 10 years from now, so we only got about 10 years.
Less than that now.
Yes, less than that now.
The tipping point.
And then you have my second least favorite legislator, Ted Cruz. Oh, well, you can't eat a hamburger. If you don't leaving your dog in the house while you go to a vacation in Mexico and then turn around because you got caught, foolish self down, boy, shut up.
Right. They're liars. They're all liars. It's ridiculous. And, they'll say whatever, and then the electorate. I always go back to this.
You have to.
Yeah. At some point, I don't really blame the politicians anymore. If you're going to keep falling for this banana in the tailpipe, I'm going to keep putting the banana in the tailpipe because you keep falling for it. So at some point, they need to be held accountable, and they need to wake up. Like, listen, my situation ain't getting no better. Yeah, he's saying all the racist stuff that I feel, but my pockets are still empty. I can't breathe. My kid has asthma. My other kid can't eat glutens. I didn't even know about glutens 20 years ago. So it's definitely some crap that they're putting in the food that's harming these kids. My daughter's only 10 and she got boobs almost as big as mine. It's hormones in this food, and you need to get that mess regulated and stop letting folks grease the wheel so you can just relax the regulations just a little bit more. And, these folks need to wake up. Obviously, whatever these lawmakers are doing is not working. So maybe try something new.
No, Talisha, it is working. It's just not working for us.
Exactly.
It's working for XYZ oil company. It's
perfectly
working for all of them. It's not working for us because we keep, like you said, there's so many children that have asthma. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was a kid, you rarely a kid with asthma. Now it's like every other child has some sort of breathing issue, some sort of respiratory disease.
Right.
I'm like, what the heck happened?
Right. And they go, of course, there's that environmental racism. They go into the low-income neighborhoods. They set up pipelines. They set up, treatment plants, all kinds of mess, pollution emitting through the air, basically making these babies sick, lead poisoning through the roof. And, that's why I was low-key happy when whomever hacked that pipeline. The residual effect is crazy people running out buying all the gas. But the simple fact is, people don't, I think they claim it was Russian. I don't know. We got Russian fever, but People are tired of them putting dangerous stuff in their neighborhoods. If it's so safe, if it's so free, go put it in the rich people's neighborhoods. Stop putting it in poor neighborhoods where they can't get away from this mess.
Exactly. And you know, that whole thing had me confused because I'm like, why would you, if you're such a smart company, wouldn't you take into account that somebody's going to hack your system and put in preventions that would?
I'm sure they had preventions. Listen, the hackers are getting better. That's why instead of arresting them, they end up hiring them. But word on the street is Russians, but grain of salt. Until our independent media confirms that, I'm not going with it because everything's
they say Russia for anything.
Exactly.
And right now, the company themselves are saying that they had their problem on their end was a billing issue, and they couldn't properly bill people. Do we believe them? Of course not. Who knows?
I mean, back
Who
up.
knows?
Say that one more time because that kind of just skipped my brain. They were saying they had problems
with they were saying it wasn't Russia. It wasn't. They weren't hacked. That they themselves had a billing problem, a problem with their program that they couldn't properly bill people. That's what they're saying.
Is this new? Because I heard there was a ransomware and a whole.
Yeah, that's what I thought. They paid a $5 million.
That was the first story.
Oh, so
and they paid $5 million.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought,
that was the first story.
You know, I heard they refused to pay the ransom.
No, I heard that they paid the ransom, and that's why they're slowly opening back up.
Okay, so now we've got 3 stories. Let's see what the next one is.
Yeah, because I'm like,
it was Trump.
That's MSNBC's one. It was Trump. Look, stop talking about it.
All day long and twice on Sunday.
That's what makes the ratings go up. But it's just ridiculous. Even like I said, even something simple like recycling all the scrap metal that's left in these places where there's just cars upon cars upon cars upon cars.
Right.
That's maybe 100 jobs. Okay, maybe, but you can't even do that because, again, like you guys are saying.
Well, if we could only educate the people,
right,
the ones who want to learn,
right,
if we could get the truth out to them,
right,
about not just the Green New Deal, but about what we are actually doing to the world.
Absolutely.
But you know the problem. Go ahead, Talisha.
I'm sorry, but the problem is folks have their blinders on until they don't. I remember 5-6 years ago, you couldn't tell me nothing about Barack Obama. The minute you'd start maybe listing his real resume, I'd turn off. I wouldn't hear a word you said. So until you're ready to listen, or until something hits the fan, like you thinking, because everybody told you Hillary's going to win and she ended up losing to Trump, then you go to find out what really happened, because I don't believe that she won the popular vote, but somehow still lost the electoral college, which we're not even going to go into that racism. So until you're ready to receive it. So we can tell them all day long that the Green New Deal is actually for us. It's going to benefit us. It's for the poor. It's for the working person. It's for the little person. They're not going to receive it until something slaps them in the face. I honestly think if maybe we had another year of COVID, folks may have changed their minds because they would have really seen who these politicians are catering to, and it ain't us.
That's what you would think that COVID would be doing that, but I think unfortunately the opposite has now happened. And especially when I
don't know about that.
And I'll tell you, and this is just in my conversation, so I'm not speaking to the whole electorate. I'm just speaking to those close to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just the lack of awareness. Like when I try to say, "Hey, the Green New Deal is about this." Oh no, it's just socialism. I can't. It's like I have so many things that as a progressive, I think that should be done, and I'm so tired of just arguing. It's socialism. One, when did socialism become a bad thing? It's not.
You need to first ask them, what is socialism?
And they compare it, they keep thinking it's communism. And socialism and communism and Marxism, those are 3 different things.
Absolutely.
I'm constantly telling people, we're not asking for free stuff. We're not asking for socialism. We're asking that the taxes that we pay go to help the people, not go to big corporations. Right. Period.
That's the whole argument I make, but it's just like, oh, well, they're doing the best they can with what they... No.
They're not even doing bare minimum.
I don't even think they're doing bare minimum. Look at the proposal that Biden had about He believes in did he say the tenets of the New Green Deal, but he wants fracking? Are you serious? Are you really, 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 really that serious?
Those things don't go together.
It's like, thank you. It's like that game in Sesame Street. They would show 4 items, and one of them clearly didn't go with the other 3. That's what Joe Biden is doing. He's playing one of these things are not like the other ones. I'm like, huh? And
he looks at that and has no idea which one it is.
Exactly. Because he has dementia, like we all know, but because he has that money and that access, they're able to keep him on track just for a little longer. But it's not long now. I honestly believe Joe had dementia. I was not one of those people that just threw stuff out in the air and saw if it stuck. I believe he assaulted Tara Reid, and I believe he has dementia. My mind has not changed on that.
Well, I'm not going to go to the dementia card. I mean, I know people believe that, but I certainly believe Tara Reid, and I certainly believe that, hey, why isn't the media covering he's threatening to fight people at his rallies? Why?
Because they colored it as cute. It's cute when Joe does.
No, I like a president that fights. Are you serious? If Trump did the same things that Biden is doing right now.
No, forget Trump. If Bernie did it.
Well, no, we wouldn't let Bernie get away with half the stuff that Joe was doing, period.
Well, how many times did we see him at a factory talking to the people? And when someone asked him a question, didn't even challenge him, just asked him a question he didn't like, he said, go vote for someone else.
Or we can go outside.
Yeah, we can go outside.
Yeah, let's go outside.
If I'm running a campaign, as much as I would say I'm never going to run as a Democratic candidate, which is why I rooted out running for city council. I'm like, no, because I've said too many negative things about the Democratic Party. Let's just say I was going to run as a Democrat, and here comes some Trump supporter getting all on my face. The first thing I'm not saying is, hey, let's go outside. Now, I'd be thinking it. Now I'm thinking it, but I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to.
Unless they pulled a Marjorie Taylor Greene.
She wanted a few. And I but I'm like, look, here,
she's a psychopath.
She
is a psychopath.
Yeah, she seriously needs help. But when you listen to them, like I said back on the Renew Deal, when you hear them saying, oh, you can't eat a hamburger. Well, should you be really eating hamburgers? And I love hamburgers
too.
Because they just so good. But should you be eating them every single day?
No.
Probably not. You probably need a diet that's full of vegetables and fruits and grains. I know, but I mean, I know the hamburger with cheese and bacon.
An egg. We throw egg on ours.
Oh no, I hate eggs. I cannot stand eggs.
Me and Tracy have to break up.
Oh my God.
We gotta break up with Tracy. We gotta break up with
the only time
I know.
That's the line.
The only time I buy eggs is when I'm baking something. Like if I'm baking a cake or some brownies, that's when I'll go buy eggs.
Fake mac and cheese.
Refuse to put it in my mac and cheese. Will never put it in my macaroni.
Oh my gosh, who is this person that?
What about potato salad or macaroni salad?
Nope. I hate eggs. I
Tuna salad. Oh my god.
They taste like nothing. Why you got to add all that stuff? No, eggs are one thing. You will never change my mind on eggs. Never ever.
Cheese. Add a little cheese. They taste delicious.
Cheese and peppers and all that. No, it's nasty. It's just like I eat it. I'm like, this is nothing. Yeah. No. But for
Tracy.
No, I'm not gonna eat that on
but like you said with the hamburgers, if people were really aware or if they cared, they would cut down on their beef consumption.
True.
They could just cut down on it. You don't have to have it 3, 4, 5 days a week.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. You don't have to have it every single day. It's not like I'm like, okay, are they trying? Like the arguments that they get to make, and there's like nobody else challenging them saying, hey, nitwit, that's stupid and wrong.
Right. Absolutely.
And then these big factory farms, aside from being so horrendously cruel to the animals,
right?
They're the ones who are injecting their animals with hormones. They're injecting it with antibiotics. And this is all passed on to the people.
Exactly.
Especially the children, like Talisha was saying, her daughter is overdeveloped at 10.
Yes.
You're seeing children look way older now, and they're like
Absolutely.
10, 11, 12, and they're looking like they're 16. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on.
Right.
When I was a kid, I looked like a child. Exactly. I looked like a 10-year-old child. I wasn't looking 15 and I was 10.
Right. Exactly.
These kids now, they're getting all the hormones in them. And who's to say what these hormones are doing to the older population, which we haven't even explored? I mean, there's just so many things.
And then there's the waste that is polluting the earth. Mm-hmm. There's all the methane because cows were not made to eat corn. Corn is cheap, so that's what they feed them. Cows were made to graze on different grasses.
Right.
They actually did an experiment where they put a port in a cow's side so they could look and see and measure the difference between feeding corn and feeding grass. Mm-hmm. And the amount of methane and stomach upset, which means the cows are suffering terribly from feeding corn. But corn is super cheap, so that's what they feed them at these factories.
Cheaper than grass?
Huh?
Cheaper than grass?
Yeah.
No, cows should eat grass.
No. Mickey was saying corn is super cheap, and I'm like, cheaper than grass?
Because grass, well, you need a lot of acres to grow the grass.
You need a whole lot of it.
And you need to, then you need to wait till it gets big, tall enough, and then you cut it into hay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, whereas corn, we subsidize corn growers. We pay them to grow corn, and we have an excess of corn.
Right.
Which means it's super cheap.
I imagine the corn fattens them up a little more than grass, too.
Yep.
They feed pigs. Don't farmers feed pigs corn, too?
They feed pigs
I honestly don't know, but I would guess probably since it's so cheap.
I'm like, they pretty much feed everything like that, I thought.
Yeah, so these big factory farms are polluting the earth in a half dozen different ways, plus the hormones and antibiotics that we're eating.
Yeah.
And I talked about what the effect is having on children, but we don't even get into what it's doing to the older population.
Yeah, look how many of us have diabetes now. Look how many of us have ulcers. Look how much of us have dementia. They said that is a direct link from Alzheimer's and dementia to diet. And so it's expanded because they're putting crap in our food and we're eating it and we're buying it. And I know you guys probably have the same thing, maybe not you, Mickey, because you're retired now, but I don't have time to research who's abusing their food and who's not. I have to work. I have a family to take care of. When I'm not at work and taking care of my family, I'm home doing work with my daughter on the computer. I don't have time to research. So I needed to be able to depend on my government that they're regulating this mess and making sure people aren't just handing us garbage and they keep giving us garbage to consume.
And then you wonder why we're like the most out of shape country ever.
Oh yeah.
Gee, I wonder why. I mean, if you even look at the school lunches and you compare them to what Europeans and Japanese children eat, they're literally feeding.
Do you realize in this country, French fries in a school lunch are considered a vegetable?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Well, potatoes are a vegetable, though.
They're starch.
Not when you deep fry them.
They are a starchy vegetable.
They are starch.
But they deep fry them. They deep fry
them. That's what brings out the starch. But the potato itself is a vegetable. It's a starchy vegetable like carrots.
Yes. And if they offer the kids a baked potato with, I don't use sour cream on my baked potato. I use plain Greek yogurt. Tastes the same.
It doesn't.
for people who like sour cream on their baked potato, yogurt is a good substitute. Plain yogurt. If they gave the kids that, I would say okay, but to deep fry them and call it a vegetable,
it's the deep frying that gets it out of the vegetable category. Because I mean, I'm like, we're feeding our children garbage. Then we're wondering, why are they more susceptible to violence? Gee, I wonder why.
Well, those are the ones we're feeding.